This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening, everyone. 3.5 years after a worker was killed in an underground mud rush at a Tasmanian mine, prosecutors have dropped the workplace safety charge against the site's operator. Copper Mines of Tasmania had been fighting the charge in court for the past 2 weeks, but this morning the matter came to a close. Our reporter Michael Breen has more.
After 2 weeks of hearings, this morning in court, a magistrate dismissed a workplace safety charge levelled against Copper Mines of Tasmania. That charge related to an incident in January 2014. Michael Welch, a worker at the Mount Lyell mine, was killed in a mud rush. The company had previously pleaded not guilty to 1 count of failing to comply with a health and safety duty. The case was heard in Burnie, but today in Hobart, after the prosecutors declined to offer further evidence, the magistrate dismissed the charge. In a statement, CMT says there is no pleasure gained from this result, but only relief that it is finally over. We are sorry for what happened. The company says it can now devote more time to reopening the mine, with a potential restart later this year. 2 other workers died at the Mount Lyell mine in 2013. CMT pleaded guilty to charges over that incident and was fined $225,000. Mr Welsh's family have expressed disappointment over today's decision.
Tasmania Police is continuing its investigations into a frightening armed robbery at Moona. 2 men with their faces covered came into the food store on Saturday night, threatening to strike staff with hammers. They ripped a cash register from the counter, making off with the day's takings. Police say they'd like to hear from anyone who saw the 2 men in the area around 7:35 p.m. on Saturday. You can provide information to Crime Stoppers anonymously. Major development proposals in Tasmania could soon be considered under a new planning approvals mechanism. The state government has released draft legislation aiming to streamline the process for significant regional projects to be assessed by an independent panel.
Holding what's expected to streamline the process for larger, more complex development proposals.
Any major project that is complex and has scale, this could provide a pathway for them. But it's a pathway into assessment, not a pathway to approval.
The Treasurer announcing new legislation for developments of regional significance, amending planning laws already in place but never utilised.
Largely because it was seen to be a disjointed process that caused more concern for proponents than running through the normal planning processes.
A new 4-stage assessment to be conducted by what the government says would be an independent panel, with early stage testing to determine if a project has potential by meeting necessary permits to provide certainty for investment, welcomed by the Local Government Association.
There are some ambiguities, for example, what does significant mean, and we would hope to see a bit more detail around that.
Under the legislation, just because a building is tall doesn't make it a major project. I want to be absolutely clear about that.
The Property Council calling for the assessment process to extend to high-rise developments as the controversial Fragrance Group proposal is left to the Hobart City Council.
The politicisation of planning decisions is not what we need. Across Australia, we see the use of joint development assessment panels, which brings together local government and major experts.
One project with potential, the Mount Wellington cable car proposal.
We need to make sure the community, that the community's voice is heard, but that needs to be in a way that is manageable and doesn't bog down for year after year after year, which we have seen for too long in Tasmania.
It's clearly the sort of legislation that will allow developers to get what they want. Behind closed doors, the community doesn't have any say at all.
Under the proposed legislation, public hearings would remain available. The public to now get its say on the government's draft bill, open for consultation for 5 weeks. Jacqueline Robson, Southern Cross News.
Tasmanian parents of children with a disability say the state's education system needs urgent reform to ensure the right support is given to those in need. A new survey reveals 98% of teachers believe assistance for students with special needs is inadequate.
Lisa Saunders believes her son is one of the lucky ones. Alex has autism. He mostly attends a support school, but once a week he is able to study mechanics at Launceston College.
He's just blowing him out of the water with what he can do and that type of thing. So it was a really hard task getting him there, but we've got him there and he's really enjoying it.
A new survey reveals many other students with disabilities aren't given the same opportunities.
From a teacher's point of view, nothing has really changed in the last 12 months. 2% of our teachers are telling us that the disability education system as it is adequate. And it's just not good enough.
Teachers say support personnel are spread too thin. Teacher training and skilling in the field is ad hoc, and there needs to be more professional development to educate teachers. Some parents also claim they're using their own funds to help teachers learn how to support their children.
Right now today there are 60 more specialists, psychologists, social workers engaged in the sector than what there were when we came to government, and $16 million more in ongoing funding.
Well, Labor absolutely believes that we should be doing a different type of assessment. So instead of a medical model, a needs-based assessment. So we can then respond to children in schools in the way that is targeted and suited to them.
Many parents say the issue needs more support than just words.
There needs to be more funding and more professional development for teachers right across the board.
At the end of the day, every child deserves to have a quality education, and we've got a whole lot of kids out there who simply aren't getting an education.
Monica Dadson at Southern Cross News.
Some of Tasmania's most historical businesses will soon be recognised in a new awards initiative. The state's Chamber of Commerce and Industry has launched the Hall of Fame Business Awards. This year's theme is focusing on those businesses who have helped shape the state over the years.
What people may have forgotten about. We have such a varied and unique past.
We need to understand what made us successful in the old days so that we can be even more successful in the future.
Nominations are now open, with the awards to be announced in October. A Queensland man is spreading his personal story of younger onset dementia on a journey across Australia. He's now on the Tasmanian leg of his motorbike ride, challenged by wet, cold and snowy conditions. But he says he's had a warm reception across the state, with people sharing their experience of the brutal and unfair condition.
Riding on his Harley, Greg Kelly is on a big mission across Australia. He's driving for more awareness of younger onset dementia.
Basically, they say 5 or 6 years you'll forget family and friends, and basically your brain then is forgetting everything, so it actually forgets how to swallow, it forgets how to use your organs, and you die of infection and organ failure.
Greg is 59 years old. He's been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. He says dealing with the condition has been tough on him and his family.
It's hard, but it's harder for the families of the sufferer.
He's one of more than 25,000 Australians who've been diagnosed with dementia under the age of 65.
People have a bit of a struggle getting a diagnosis because they don't fall into what we typically feel is the age group for people getting dementia. And there's a lot of misdiagnosis and a long time, a lot of anxiety builds up.
Support workers say the younger onset condition can be socially isolating and lead to financial difficulties.
Think about the stage of life they're in. You know, that's a peak earning period. Probably have kids who are going off to university or younger. Maybe they're looking after their elderly parents. They have a lot of responsibilities.
Rolling on, today's destination is the west coast of Tasmania. The bike's heated handles certainly coming in handy for this Queenslander.
Tasmania has welcomed me with open arms. The weather has been great. The little bit of snow, etc., that I'm going to go through, I think that's Tassie just simply saying, look, we love you, we're going to give you a little bit of all of our weather.
Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
A Tasmanian allergy specialist is urging sufferers to get on top of their hay fever before the spring season hits. It comes after a recent survey found many people are cancelling plans and calling in sick for work because of their symptoms.
Mark has been suffering from hay fever for the last 10 years.
It's really difficult. I have hay fever year round and I'm finding it so hard just in these last few days. It's very much cold-like symptoms.
She knows all too well how debilitating those symptoms can be.
headaches, you get snuffly, you're coughing, you find that your chest is really heavy.
But she's not alone. Roughly 1 in every 5 Tasmanians suffers from hay fever.
And the only state that's worse than that is Canberra, which is 1 in 4.
Allergists fear that number is only set to rise, with sufferers experiencing worse symptoms than before and more frequently.
With global warming that we've got, it's predicted that the pollen count by the year 2020, which is coming very soon, will actually have increased from current levels by another 40%.
Results from the 2016 Facing Allergies Can End Stigma survey found hay fever impacts on people's social interactions, their romantic relations and their work productivity. 6 in 10 respondents said hay fever makes them feel less attractive. 2 in 5 reported cancelling social plans and a quarter have taken a sick day because of their symptoms. So what can Tasmanians do now to prepare for spring? Dr Smith says apart from antihistamines and nasal sprays, the free Air Rater smartphone app, developed by a group of Tasmanians, could help.
And I believe it's the best in Australia. It's the only one that actually gives you which grasses there are. And it's great because if you drive to Burnie, your little man on your phone app moves and then it's got the Burnie pollen count. If you're out in a boat in the Bass Sea, it'll tell you there's no pollen. It's superb.
Jessica Moran, Southern Cross News.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has ended the day lower with a rise in the energy sector unable to offset broad-based losses. The ASX 200 down 34 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was buying 79 US cents and 66 euro cents.
Devonport coach Mitch Thorpe has confirmed speculation that he has officially parted ways with the club. Thorpe was contracted to coach on for 2018, but says the constant travel and time away from his home has taken a toll on his family. Quashing any rumours of internal conflict with the Magpies board, Thorpe says the decision was purely personal.
I'm nearly 29 now and with 2 young kids in Launceston, driving up and down the road, spending a lot of time at Devonport. My priorities need to be a bit closer to home.
Having spent the last 3 seasons as playing coach, Thorpe was contracted to carry on in the role next year. But after a month of soul searching, he broke the news to the playing group following the side's loss to Burnie on Friday night.
My family comes before any plans or any football teams I coach, so pretty simple decision really.
Showing guts and a fiercely competitive spirit for most of the year, despite notching up just 2 wins, Thorpe couldn't have spoken more highly of the young and inexperienced group throughout the season. Says Friday night's announcement was a tough one.
I was a bit emotional, obviously, on Friday night, as you can imagine, and there was a few tears coming from the playing group as well. Most of the boys will have several coaches over their footy careers, so this is just the start for those guys.
A powerhouse in the Pies forward line this year, Thorpe says several clubs have already contacted him about joining them in 2018. One in particular is shaping up as the frontrunner.
There's a fair bit of speculation about Sam and I's relationship and whether I'll play at Lonnie. I mean, to be really brutally honest, playing footy at the moment's the last thing on my mind.
The most important thing for Mitch at this stage is just to make sure that everything's going right and he ends his time at Devonport really respectfully, and I'm sure he's doing that. When the time's right, Mitch and I will chat, and fingers crossed we get him, but I'm sure he's going to be chatting to other clubs as well.
And the votes are in for the RACT Insurance Player of the Year in the TSL after the last round of the regular season, with Will Campbell earning the 3 votes in the D's win over the Tigers. Zach Webster made a solid return for the Pies in their upset over Clarence. Tom Couch was judged best on in North Launceston's clash with the Blues, and Blair Rubach helped Burnie finish the season on a high note with a win against Devonport. So that means Jay Bowden has officially claimed the Player of the Year title once again with 22 votes, with the award to be presented tomorrow. After breathing down Bowden's neck all season, Tom Couch finished just 3 votes behind, with fellow bomber Brad Cox-Goodyear coming in at 3rd on 16 votes, followed by Lauderdale's Bryce Walsh on 13. A stellar result for a couple of the state's best young cyclists overnight, as Macy Stewart got herself back in the winner's circle by claiming the Tour of the King Valley in Victoria, with fellow teammate and fellow Tasmanian Maddie Fasnacht taking out 2nd overall.
With 12 riders representing the state over the 3 days of competition, Stewart was right in the mix for overall honours come yesterday's fourth and final stage. At the front of the pack for the entire race, Stewart fell just short of line honours, edged out by Erin Keneally. But second place was enough to see the North West Coast product take out the Tour of the King Valley title.
They were closing in on us, but we just had to pretty much team time trial, and I was stoked to make it to the end, and I knew if we stayed away, I had a fair chance in the sprint, so yeah, I'm absolutely stoked.
Hobart teenager and Stewart's Tasmanian Institute of Sport teammate Madeline Fasnacht continuing her impressive year by finishing second overall, with the TIS squad claiming victory in the team's classification. Not so flattering a result for Tasmanian cyclist Will Clark in the Vuelta a España, finishing stage 9 in 178th place after leading the peloton in the early stages of the race. The result coming amid news his team Cannondale Drapac may fold come the end of the year. And a weekend to forget for Alex Peroni during round 8 of the Formula Renault Series in France, with the young Tasmanian experiencing mechanical failure in race 1 before being shunted from behind and taken out of contention during race 2. Peroni sits 9th overall in the standings, ahead of the next round in Belgium starting on September 23.
After pulling off a sensational last-minute win over NPL side Launceston City over the weekend, Southern Championship side Glenorchy Knights will look to do the same again when they take on Olympia Warriors in the League Cup semi-finals, with the Knights ambitiously hoping to break back into the NPL competition next year.
The club is working very hard to to make sure that we do put a good effort to play against NPL, and we certainly, it's no secret that we want to go in NPL.
South Hobart will take on the Northern Rangers at Darcy Street in the other League Cup semi-final.
Good evening. Hobart and Burnie 13 today, Launceston 12 and Devonport 11 as we embark on nearly 2 weeks without AFL football. Don't know what to do. Temperatures are up to 3 below average today as winter lets us know it's not quite finished yet. A few showers over the west and south and a westerly airstream. Fine and partly cloudy elsewhere. Friendly beaches out top with 14, Wynyard Grove and Bushy Park 13, King Island, Strawn, St Helens all 12, Flinders Island and Low Head both 11 degrees. And Lyawini started out with a -6, managing a 5 later in the day. A low to mid-level cloud band with embedded thunderstorms is off southern New South Wales. Patchy low cloud is over Tasmania and Victoria and the surrounding oceans. Mostly cloud-free for the rest of the country. The low-level convective cloud moved over the state from the west today, mostly clear in the northeast with the snow on Ben Lomond there as well. Tomorrow, a large high influences the weather over most of the nation. A cold front lies to the southwest of Tasmania. An inland trough develops over North Queensland. West to northwest winds increasing to 15 to 25 knots and to 30 knots over the south, with swells at 3 metres in western and southern waters. Strong wind warning from Tasman Island to Sandy Cape. And Tuesday for Hobart, fine until a late shower moves in, 14 the top, 13 for Adventure Bay, 9 the high for Tarraleah. Launceston, an early frost, a partly cloudy afternoon, 13 the maximum, 13 for Devonport with a possible shower, 1-2 for Bridport, 13 degrees. Burnie, a possible shower and 13, showery in the west, Strawn on 12 and Marrawar 13, and in the east tomorrow, partly cloudy. St Helens 15 up to 16 for Swansea, a shower or 2 on Flinders Island, 13 the maximum. On Wednesday, an early shower clearing the south and west with snow to 600 metres in the south, fine across the rest of the state. Widespread frost and morning fog on Thursday, a fine day to follow though. More frost on Friday with a light shower over the west and northwest. A shower or possible storm in Perth, an afternoon shower in Melbourne, partly cloudy for Canberra and Sydney, and mostly fine for the other centres. It's currently cloudy, 9 in Hobart, 9 in Launceston, partly cloudy in Devonport and 9 degrees. This bye round in the AFL, Joe, don't know about that. All it's doing is creating an extra week of Tiger Mania. Don't know what's going to happen if the Swans play Richmond in the finals.
There'll be a divorce in your household, that's all I know. Thank you very much, Merv. Well, that's all from the team for now. We'll see you with updates a bit later. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.